the transition wasn't hard. I guess when I was on the diet, you have a lot of naysayers around you, right? So you have a lot of people like the first thing they'll throw out is cholesterol. Your cholesterol's got to be off, all this stuff.
Yep.
What most people didn't even know is so I started when I was learning, I started pulling all my blood work, all my functional medicine testing. Like I was doing that. And when I was doing that medical medium, vegan, vegetarian diet, I already looked like I had heart disease. So I already looked completely awful on basically a high carb, high vegetable diet.
What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us on episode 115 of the SuperSetYourLife.com podcast. This is your daily dose of entertainment education to fuel your life inside and beyond the gym. We have Trevor Lee today. So blessed to have this conversation. He is a primal and carnivore coach, a functional nutritionist, a gym owner, a fellow follower of Christ. So yeah, we have a lot in common. I reached out to this gentleman because he's a man that has in so many ways accomplished a lot of what Taylor and I are striving towards right now, just working towards every single day. So he is specialized further experiences in a lot of areas that we are. And so I want to touch on some of those topics. And I hope and pray that we receive lots of wisdom from Trevor and that you do too, listening to this recording. So we will be discussing our various techniques and methods around optimal performance, using the carnivore diet, and the role that our faith has to play in all this. Hebrews 11:1 says, "Now the faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen." So I'm going to pray real quick. Lord of hosts, bless this conversation with Trevor, and may our listeners hear our hearts and see your glory today during their workouts, and give us the words to make this recording part of what makes that happen. Amen. Mr. Trevor, welcome to the SuperSetYourLife.com podcast.
What's going on?
Cool. So, funny story. We were just talking right before this recording about how you got into the carnivore diet and how in the books that I've read that I kind of cut my teeth on. And we were like, you know what? Why don't we just talk about this in the recording? So let's just go off of that. Yeah. So did you start listening to podcasts, books? Like, how did you get bit by the carnivore bug?
Okay. So, yeah, as we were kind of brushing up on this, and I guess when I talk about my past, I hope that I'm not going to speak illy on anyone. So I'm going to try to take, a humble approach and not just degrade something. So I'll do my best. I'll do my best. So I started because I got really sick. When you get really sick and the Western Medical Society kind of doesn't know what to do with you, you're just like, what do I do? And you can either sit there and do nothing, or you can try to, pull strings and look for your own understanding. And that's what I did. And I came across a guy, his name's Medical Medium. I don't know his real name, Anthony something. And he promotes a plant-based diet, but very specific things. So like, his thing is this morning celery juice. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, where people are on a celery juice craze. So
it's one of those things where if I saw it at the store, I would probably just pass that and go to the meat aisle.
Yeah. So the whole idea behind it was to cleanse your blood, and then it does something. He talks about a form of salt and the ability to cleanse your liver, and nothing else has that ability. Okay. So here's the thing: when you are sick, you're naive. You'll believe anything, right? Just to try to get healthy. So I did that. I was doing celery every day I probably did this for a year, maybe not specifically this diet. I started adding in some different things or doing different things, but, and then it would follow with a smoothie, and it was called a detox smoothie. So now you're talking like spirulina. And I do think some of these things can, have healing benefits in certain occasions.
Yeah, but I bought into the same thing. I used to be all about the spirulina bandwagon was getting the like organic powders and putting them in protein shakes and stuff, and just like thinking that it would like heal any sort of gut issues or joint pain and all the stuff that's claimed about it, and like boost your immune system, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it was every morning with like Atlantic Dulse, mangoes, blueberries. basically just like a sugar overload right out of the gate. And then you were eating another, hour or two later with was like oatmeal, basically just keeping sugars really high. And the whole idea behind it was to ease adrenaline stress, like stress on your adrenals, right? Which we now know to not be true because you're kind of just playing with sugars and then cortisols, what you're ultimately doing. So I did that diet for, oh my goodness, let's just call it 3 to 6 months, probably that diet specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And then things start happening. I will even almost go to as far as like hallucinating types things because life didn't feel real to me. So I am a believer, you're a believer, right? But one moment I came downstairs and I saw my wife and I was like, am I alive or dead? And the only way I was able to rationalize this in my head was the fact that I was a believer. I was like, okay, if I died, I would be in heaven. I'm in pain right now. This isn't heaven. That's honestly how I like rationalized it. I was like, so
Wow.
I'm not dead. And it was crazy, but that's literally where I was daily. So obviously my brain was starving.
May
Not just
I interject something real quick?
100%.
Yeah. So whenever I've been on the carnivore diet now for about 2 or 3 years, and it's been mostly perfect. There's been some times where I have fallen off the bandwagon, and I have a history of binging and purging throughout my childhood, and so that giant that's a demon. That's something that I got to work on every day. And the carnivore diet has been very therapeutic, like it is for a lot of people that struggle with eating disorders. Because you get more in tune with your body, and just like everything you said, but that mental clarity is something that it's like, I think that's the most valuable part of it, to the point to where whenever I have fallen off the wagon and I've kind of had to pull myself back together, have a come to Jesus moment and just start over and start with the basics and get back on my diet. That's been something that I've noticed that you've said towards the end. You just lose your brain when you're so used to running on fat, and then you get off it. You just remember all the reasons why you got on that diet in the first place, because you miss not having all the inflammation, and you miss not having the ability to think as clearly and as sharply as you really can on a good meat-based diet. So yeah, no, sorry, I just wanted to piggyback off that.
I completely agree, man. Yeah, I think that's great. So I guess back to it. I thought it was something wrong with me. Like I wasn't being a good enough steward, right? Like I wasn't being a vegan hard enough. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna go fruitarian. So I only ate raw fruit for, I probably did it for 2 months. And dude, I was dying. Like I was dying to the point that I knew it. I would ask people and they were just trying to be extremely nice to me. I was like, how bad do I look? I know I feel awful. I feel like I'm dying. How bad do I look? Oh, you don't look that bad. I come to find out, now that I do actually look good, or what I think is good, people are like, oh yeah, you look like you had cancer. I was like, why didn't no one just tell me the truth? Like truth is still love, right? God is love and grace. Like just feed me some truth so I know where to go. So yeah, I did that for several months and then kept studying throughout the time. So I became this doesn't matter, but integrative health practitioner throughout this, because I was like, I need to figure out, the ins and outs of functional medicine, what's kind of going on, and kind of get a direction instead of just like going to someone and being like, please save me. And I don't mean to sound blasphemous. Obviously, like our savior is there, but I didn't want to like just give my power to somebody and be like, I hope this works, kind of thing. So I started studying. Obviously I say God led, and I started learning more, and I was like, it makes more sense ancestrally, all this stuff, to have meat in my diet. Why am I not doing that? Why am I neglecting that? And then you start learning about vitamins for the brain, things to heal the gut, all that stuff. And I slowly just start transitioning over the period of time. And I ultimately landed on the animal-based diet, which I did that for 3 months probably prior to carnivore. And I have a yeast issue in my body, so high yeast, and it comes out in like toenail fungus, jock itch, and tinea versicolor, so like skin issues, and a little brain fog at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm feeding this yeast by high amounts of sugar, even though I'm on a far better diet than what I was. I was like, I need to cut this in order to get this out of my body or lower it to, a manageable amount. So that's what I did. And then speed up to now, I've been carnivore for 7 going on 8 months, and I feel phenomenal. It's like how I tell people, and like, you obviously want, if you feel you have the answer for a problem, you obviously want to share that, right? So instead of coming off very strong, I'm like, there are times I feel like I have the limitless pill just by eating this way, and that's how I feel. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, you feel so good in that you're firing on every cylinder, and it just makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, it's an addicting feeling to where you don't even want to eat carbs again because you just you want to be able to function at your best every day. It's that there's I don't know that the carnivore diet, to the extent of eliminating carbs, is necessarily for everybody, depending on your goals. But I mean, I think that everybody should give it a try, because if you, yeah, you say you feel great and you eat carbs every day, take them all out for 3 weeks, just try it. And then you'll feel 10 times better. And then you'll realize, oh, wow, this is why this is what all the hype is about. And then 100%. Maybe it's for you long term, and maybe it's not.
I completely agree. And I also believe, so like, obviously our food looks a lot different, but I kind of go back ancestrally and I look at, what you would have had available to you based on where you live and based on the season. So sometimes maybe that is fruit, sometimes that is honey, things like that. So it all depends. Like, I don't know. I try to keep it simple. I feel like you can overcomplicate this and then you don't know what direction to go, or you can just like keep it simple. Go back to olden days, what worked, what makes this easy.
Mm-hmm. So have you found just the preparation and the overall lifestyle and like even the cost effectiveness of the carnivore diet to be something that's better than what you were doing before?
Oh, hands down. So a part of my story, and I tell this just to be truthful and not to like any way talk, like sometimes people get weird about talking about money. So within that point of me being sick,
okay. I asked the question, so nobody's going to be offended.
Yeah. So with that point of me being sick, it was probably a two-year period. And I had spent $30,000 on supplements, labs, all this stuff to try to get better. So when you take in the calculation of that, and that's not even calculating the food I had to eat because it was crazy. It was all organic, all like just top pristine, all this crazy stuff. Some of it was hard to get. And then you look at, I can just go buy a couple of steaks or even like burgers or ground beef, and that'll hold me over for multiple days at a time. It's so easy and convenient. And I just put up on my Instagram the other day, like I even bought a little more expensive burgers, the Schweden's one. I throw them up on my Instagram often. They're like $10 for 4 burgers, but the total calories are close to 1,500. So it's a large portion for most people.
Mm-hmm.
And it ended up coming out to me based on how much I eat to be like $20 a day. And I was like, okay, you go to Chipotle one time, majority of people, they're spending 10, 12 bucks, So I was like, to me, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. For everybody that's listening, just get real honest with yourself and think about your refrigerator and think about how much of that food do I actually eat and how much of it goes bad and I throw it away. Lettuce, berries, they always go bad. If you're eating nothing but meat every day, then your grocery bill becomes so simple. It becomes, you can make it extremely cost effective. The times where we've had the hardest financial times, like this last year, we're in business for ourselves. You know that. We're working 12 hours a day, like most days, pretty much when we're here. If we ever leave the house, we just go to the gym or church, and that's pretty much it. But I mean, this is all that we do, and we pour our life into this, right? And so we have months where we feel like millionaires. We have months where we're like, how are we going to pay rent? And because you know exactly what I'm talking about, bro. You've been through all this. But the tight financial months, chicken thighs, because they got a lot of fat and they actually have more potassium than steak. And so I'm like, it really is helping me hit my goals better than steak, and they are dirt cheap. save all of your bones, great. Then you can make bone broth and using every single part of the animal. I mean, this is the cheapest diet that we've ever done too. Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah. I would agree.
Awesome. What was the hardest part for you to start the carnivore diet and stick to it?
So my transition was probably, first of all, my personality type is I'm all in, I'm all out. Okay. So
me too. Wow. Okay. That makes two of us. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, so even before, I was saved, and I'll just throw this out there, and this comes to mind, when I would drink alcohol, it was the same way. So I was either drinking or I wasn't drinking.
Yep.
So probably a bad example, but
it's a miracle that I don't have a DUI, to be completely honest, and I don't drink anymore either. So
yeah. So I got one when I was 18 because I was a wild child and
yeah.
I hadn't been saved yet, so I really didn't believe in anything. But for me, it was, once I made the commitment, I was like, there's nothing else I could do, because I tried everything else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I had been a bodybuilder, a trainer for many years. I was in the military, so like I had eaten the chicken and rice, the paleo.
Thank you for serving. I didn't realize that. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Oh no, that's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd eaten that way for so long, and then when I started trying other things, like they weren't working either. And dude, I had tried so many like supplemental protocols, like parasite cleanses, yeast cleanses, SIBO cleanses. Dude, I did it all. I mean, I did it all, and they honestly made me feel awful. Did
you ever try the fat flush diet?
I didn't do that one.
Oh, I did that one. Yeah. And basically just had the same experience you did.
Yeah.
Not missing anything.
It almost got to the point where, because I was studying so many doctors, right? And I won't mention this doctor's name, but he's really big on grape fasts. So like where you only eat grapes for extended periods of time. And I almost was like, all right, I'm going to only eat grapes for months. And then I was like, what am I thinking? No, I'm not doing that. I'm not eating a bunch of grapes. So I didn't do that. So the transition wasn't hard. I guess when I was on the diet, you have a lot of naysayers around you, right? So you have a lot of people like, the first thing they'll throw out is cholesterol. Your cholesterol's got to be off, all this stuff.
Yep.
What most people didn't even know is, so when I was learning, I started pulling all my blood work, all my functional medicine testing. Like I was doing that. And when I was doing that medical medium, vegan, vegetarian diet, I already looked like I had heart disease. So I already looked completely awful on basically a high carb, high vegetable diet. So I was like, okay, if I go this route, what's going to happen? I get worse, So I was like, and then as you know, the more you learn, the more you're like, that's just not true. I don't believe in that. So it was probably that. It was probably the point of just hearing so many naysayers and so many people thinking how weird it was to do such a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been trying to get around to making a YouTube video on literally like 5 things you're gonna hear as soon as you start this diet and what to say when you hear that kind of stuff. So I'm really glad that you shared that, because that's it's probably like a week or two into everybody's plan if they are new to the carnivore diet. Most of our clients coming in, like they're already experienced on it, but they just want to take their health and their physique to the next level. They've already got the health part figured out. Now they want to master, like see how far they can go with it athletically, right? So that's kind of where Taylor and I come in. But that's something that we've noticed is, sorry, I forget where I was going with that. This happens a lot.
You're solid, brother. You were talking about creating the YouTube video.
Oh yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. So if someone comes in that is new to the carnivore diet, that's always like a week or two into it. They're like, hey, my mom's saying this, or my dad's saying this, or my roommate's saying this. Like, what should my response be? And it varies on the person and on the conversation, and on the type of relationship. Some situations need to be handled a little more delicately. Usually, for the most part, when anybody asks me, it's just this is the way that I eat. This is what makes me feel good, and I'm just gonna stick with meat. Thanks. And then I usually just change the subject because it's something that we don't need to make a big deal. So
absolutely. And I mean, at the end of the day, like, you can only do so much for people, right? Like you can lead a horse to water, that saying, but it's completely true. Like
Yeah.
people will believe what they want to believe. Like, but it's almost on their own schedule, or if God changes their heart. That's what I tell people all the time. I'm like, you can present the information, but you're not going to be the one changing somebody's heart. It's just not the way it works.
Mm-hmm. What does Dale Carnegie say? A person convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Yeah.
Yep. What is the biggest? Okay, great. That's a perfect segue into business. I wanted to ask you a business question, but first, is it okay if we touch back on something you mentioned earlier?
100%.
You mentioned that God led. I believe that those were your exact words. How did God lead you through those decisions? Was it an audio? Was it an audible voice? Did he show up in a burning bush or something? Did it happen through reading scripture? How did you come to that conclusion that he was leading you?
So, here's how I come to the conclusion. Okay, so prior to this, I was kind of in a moment of prosperity. And I find those moments to be equally as hard as when you're suffering.
Oh yeah.
Because when you're prosperous, you tend to look on yourself and like you are like, oh, how great am I? You know, kind of the Satan issue, the pride issue.
Yep. It just goes to your head.
Yeah. And I think that is what was happening to me. I started slacking on, my devotions and things like that, even church and praying and leading my wife. Her name's Sadie. So even leading her in the appropriate way, started slacking because I was so driven and focused on earthly things, business really, getting debt free, things like that just took all my focus. So I think what happened is, God allowed me to suffer to get turned around back to him, right? And that's really what
that's what he does, is he uses that stuff to humble you. This is awesome. Oh, great. I love where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I figured that's
yep. I was going to say, I'll be 100% honest. There was a moment where I got mad at God, and I don't necessarily think that's the wrong thing, because if you look at your earthly parents, there are times where you're like, oh, I think I hate them. And, I vocalized that. I said that to God. I was like, you're not pulling me out of this, because the hardest part wasn't what was happening to me. It was watching my wife come into a room where I couldn't move and just seeing her break down and cry because we didn't have we didn't know what to do. So I was like thinking like, God, take me, do this. Don't do anything to my wife. Like, this is destroying her too. And I was mad. I was so mad at him. And then, you just keep going through and you're like, there's a purpose. You just keep reminding you that. And then you start getting back in word and you're like, wait a minute. I know why this is happening. And then you have a conversation with someone down the road who's like, this is happening to my body. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is clicking. I now know why I went through those tough years, because I can have this conversation with you intellectually and have the experience to tell you this is what I did to get me to point B, so rough road, thankful for it. Would I want to do it, 2 to 3 times? Maybe not. But definitely God led, because now I can have conversations with people and my heart has changed towards so many things. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Oh, it totally does. Yeah. No, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. I mean, it just gives me another perspective on it too, of somebody else that's like, because I can relate to everything that you're saying. Like when you hit a failure, like when you hit rock bottom and you feel like there's no hope, that humbles you in a way that nothing else can. And we need that. We all need that. It keeps our pride in check. Pride is the original sin, that, and it's destructive. There's nothing good from it. So that's definitely, I would agree, is God's way of pulling us back to him repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff, man. What is the biggest business failure that you've ever encountered?
Oh man. So this is going to be funny.
All right.
So we opened a gym. I became, again, my personality, I like to just get things moving. Sometimes my lack is seeing those things out. So I can be driven on emotion from time to time. So we had the gym for...
We all are 100% of the time.
Yeah.
To some degree.
So we had the gym for like 3 years, and me and a couple other buddies were talking, and I love people. I love just sharing energy, and kind of, sharing Christ really is what it comes down to. Because people will always ask you, like, what's different about you? Or they're like, oh, well, let me just tell you this story. This is why I'm different, or why I believe I'm different, right? And we got the idea that how cool would it be to open a donut shop? Obviously, I wasn't carnivore at this time. So we did, and it kind
Please tell
of,
me you had bacon maple bars, please.
we did. So we did have.
Oh, good, good. Okay.
Have you ever heard of like duck donuts?
Duck donuts. No.
So it's
I
like
love duck and I love donuts. That sounds like a good combination.
So it was like think of like an exclusive hot and ready to go donuts made right in front of you. Essentially what it was. So we did that. We were pretty invested in. The other guys were a little more financially invested in myself, but I think I had put in, again, just throwing figures out there to kind of get your audience. I think I'd spent 20 to 30 grand on that. And for the first 2 months, dude, we crushed it. And then after that, it just tanked and we lost all that money, dude. Like all the money we had put in, keeping it, we lost it. So it was a complete failure. Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing as far as running a donut shop. We just thought it was a cool idea. So, but the one thing I will say about that is I'm not sad it happened, because you learn a lot from suffering. You learn a lot from failing. And when you financially lose, you definitely learn from that. So
that's amazing. I bet that now looking back too, with you being with you being a personal trainer, with you being a coach yourself, and with you focusing more on fitness and having a healthy lifestyle around what you eat and what you do every day, I would imagine that no disrespect to anybody that does it on a donut shop, because low key donuts are my Achilles heel. Like, bro, you can keep the cake, you can keep the cookies, you can keep everything else, but man, keep me away from those stores, because that is because I'm selling the place out if I go to a donut shop.
That's how I was. That's
right.
how I was.
Right. So no disrespect, but I would imagine that what you're doing right now, you probably get more of a sense of fulfillment out of it, because you know that you're helping somebody to make better decisions long-term about what they put in their body.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Coaching drastically has changed, because I went from I call it a bro diet. That's probably disrespectful, but the chicken and rice, what bodybuilders would preach.
Yeah. If somebody else comes up with a better name, let us know. But until then, it's the bro diet.
Yeah. And then it's like that binge cheat meal, right? So that's what I would do. And if I was training people at the time, I was like, oh yeah, cheat meals are fine. And it really creates an eating disorder in a way.
Big time.
I was gonna say it's not healthy, because you feel so restricted, and a lot of the times you're just hungry 24/7. And then finally, when you do go to eat, it's like, all right, I'm eating a pizza, brownies, 12 donuts. And then you're a sloth, you're just like, yeah.
And then when you go to eat something that should taste good, like a steak, it doesn't taste the same as it did before. If you're familiar with keto bricks, right? Robert Sykes's product. Okay. So a keto brick, perfect example. Everybody's like, you do everything that Robert Sykes does. You eat you eat keto bricks, blah blah blah. Because I do. That's one of the non meat sources that I do like to consume, particularly when I'm cutting on a ketogenic diet. But they're like, oh, how do keto bricks taste? And I'm like, they taste amazing if you're on a ketogenic diet. If you're not on a ketogenic diet, you're going to be very disappointed. But if you're on a ketogenic diet, they taste great. And so I think when you consume carbs, but more so dirty carbs, more so sugar, that's for me, it always sends my brain a different direction, almost like it's a drug and not like it's actually food. But if my body's clean of all that garbage and I'm only eating things that actually fuel my body every day, every single bite and every single salt flake, you start noticing flavors you didn't notice that were there before, and it becomes a completely different dining experience, really.
Oh, and how awesome is that the food, I call it God created, right? Obviously everything is within the realm of God created, but like the food that God placed here, when you finally get back to just like truly tasting it and maybe adding like a little salt, is like the notes of like what it might have been smoked in, you're starting to taste all that and you're like, oh my goodness, that is like really awesome. Before you're like, does it have, chocolate syrup drizzled all over it? 'Cause that's
Exactly.
all you were looking for. It's insane.
Artificial sweeteners will do that to your head too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's kind of one of the things I don't like about the carnivore community personally is that people seem to get bent out of shape really quickly about things like coffee and artificial sweeteners. And I'm like, yeah, I drink artificial sweeteners because I like my creatine, I like my pre-workout, and that helps me be a better athlete because I'm an athlete too, right? But there is something to the fact that when I do consume artificial sweeteners, it kind of throws off my satiety, but I'm working out, so who cares? It's not like I'm going to stop and drop and eat a meal because I'd probably just throw it up if it was mid-set.
Yeah. Yeah.
it would definitely come back up. But yeah, and then by the time I consume my first meal, I'm in a relatively fasted state, and then it's bone broth or whatever it is, and it especially if you're in a relatively fasted state, it doesn't matter what you eat, it just tastes good. But,
Oh,
but
100%.
if you're having sugar every other day, like you just it's not the same. It's just not the same, and that's my experience. But both you and me are all in or all nothing. So
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree with everything you said, man.
yeah,
The carnivore community can be a tricky one too. Ultimately, the end state is we just want people to feel well, right?
yeah.
So whatever it is, obviously we think there is a better avenue. But if someone came to me and they were like, "Hey, I want to be a vegetarian, and this is what I'm doing. There's no other way. I want to feel well." I would try to help them or push them to somebody who I was like, "Okay, they've done it for 10 years. Like, learn from them."
Yeah, 100%.
So
My uncle is a vegetarian, and so it's Taylor's uncle actually. So I guess uncle-in-law, I don't know what you would call it, but
yeah,
he and I are actually pretty tight, and we have a lot in common when it comes to music and everything. But he's vegan, and so we have a tentative date to happen soon, where we're gonna go to a restaurant. We already have this figured out, and we're gonna order 2 entrees, and I'm eating all the meat, and I'm giving him all the vegetables, and it's just gonna be a hell of a time. Cool conversation.
yeah, it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
That's funny.
What is it okay if we switch gears more into bodybuilding and athletics?
100%.
Cool. Okay, so you're a bodybuilder. What category have you been have you competed in before?
So I competed in physique was my first. I did 2 shows and then I did classic. Man, I was a terrible.
What federation? Sorry.
Oh my goodness. I couldn't even.
INBF, NANBF.
NPC. Sorry. Yeah, NPC.
Oh,
sorry.
okay, cool. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah, great.
Yeah, sorry. It had been so long that I forgot.
Yeah.
But I was a terrible bodybuilder in the sense of I was able to get really lean. And at the time I was doing the carb cycling. But when I was going out for classic physique, I didn't even have stage music. So as I was walking up, I was just like, "Yeah, can you play this song?" Like that was literally it. I didn't practice a routine, nothing. So I didn't do my due diligence on my end, and I just kind of wung it. So it was like I did all that work just to wing something. That kind of sucks. But at least I got up there. The whole purpose was to face a fear, and I did that.
Right on. Awesome. And so you're able to check it off your bucket list, and it probably made you better at everything else that you did in life, because that's a traumatic experience, man, when you get when you make that commitment to do a show and then you're judged in your underwear in front of a whole in front of a panel of people that really specialize in this and know the industry inside and out. So what was your deepest insecurity like going into that experience?
I think it's just the idea of being in the spotlight in front of everyone else, kind of just that fact. And it ultimately, like, it led me to do a bunch of other things. So I did bodybuilding, but my main focus was modeling at the time. So I actually got to walk in the New York runway.
So sorry, cut you off. So the posing for the men's physique category specifically probably is what helped you with that, huh?
Yeah.
So those two go really well together. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So kind of it led me down that avenue. And I did that for, several years before I felt convicted in a bad way. Because they'll ask you to do certain things that you're just like, man, that seems really sketchy. And it started getting to that point. I was like, I can no longer do this. I I'm starting to feel more idleish and I don't like what's happening. So that ultimately led me away, but it was really cool. It's really cool to get your body really lean. One, it's really cool to be really confident within yourself.
Mhm.
It's really cool to see what producing those results can lead to as well, whether it be, winning multiple competitions, modeling, whatever. I think it's really cool.
Hey everyone, Coach Taylor Milton here. Welcome to Skullbellz TV, the official YouTube channel of supersetyourlife.com, where you're going to discover a weekly upload of quick and easy to follow workout tutorials featuring Coach Colt, myself, or one of our athletes to keep your workouts fun, practical, and effective. Our family's latest keto carnivore recipes that fuel Colt's competitions and keep myself and our kiddos strong and healthy. Video uploads of the supersetyourlife.com podcast, now over 100 episodes, your weekly dose of entertainment, education, and inspiration to fuel your life inside and beyond the gym, and much more. Last thing before we get into the video, we're asking a big favor from you. This has been working beautifully, so if you would please think of someone you care about that would benefit from this video, go ahead and smash that like button, click the share button, and text this video to them. That would mean the world to us. And while you're at it, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss more exciting content from Skullbellz TV, because our team has lots of meat and lots of muscle coming your way, and I promise you won't want to miss it. When you hit the subscribe button, you'll see a bell icon pop up. You want to click that too so you're notified every time we release a new video. Thank you so much for the support. It means the world to us. Every like, share, and subscription helps our channel grow and supports our family's hard work. So thank you so much for doing your part too. That's all we ask. God bless you, and please enjoy this video.
Yeah, we call that superset your life here, because the gym is in and of itself, and bodybuilding of itself is superset. Makes you better whatever else you do next. I mean, you know how it goes. You do a set of bicep curls. What does that do? It pumps up your biceps. Oh, now you can go do bench press, and you can probably lift more because you have more leverage. So it's the same thing. You leverage those kind of skills into whatever it is that you're doing next. And in your case, it was business. So were you saved before that? Like, did your faith, I know this was a while ago, so did your faith play a big role in those competitions too?
Yeah, so I was saved before that. I got saved at 18, 19.
Is that an experience that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah, absolutely.
Please do.
So I was kind of a lost kid. I grew up with driven by fear my whole life. I didn't know what to make of it. I went to Hell Escape. I don't know if you have something similar, like a local church put on basically like a Hell Escape, where there was a car wreck, somebody died, they went to hell because Jesus said, I didn't know you. Okay. And then you kind of go through a whole scene of things. I wasn't a believer, and I went through that, dude. It rocked my world to the point where I had nightmares. Like, I was lost, and I was going to a Catholic church at the time, but I was receiving no instruction, or no one was really guiding me towards anything. So I was just lost. And since I was running on fear, it started turning to anger. And then it got to the point where I was just like, well, if I can't be good and I have no answers, I'm going to choose to be bad. So it started happening like that. I started drinking at like 13. I started, having sex with people when I was really young, the same age, 13, started getting into drugs. Then I started getting into a bunch of trouble. It's kind of crazy that I was still playing football, and like, it was like two sides of the coin. So like, I looked really good on this side, but I was actually really bad. And then I started getting arrested for certain things. I got a DUI when I was 18. And it was really like, I hit an extreme low in my life where it was one of those things where you hit such an extreme low and you're like, I have no direction to go. It's like,
you just kind of go from pleasure to pleasure, dopamine hit to dopamine hit.
Yeah. And it's like, I can no longer rely on my strength. What am I to do? And that's really when God was just like, he like came into my heart, dude. And I was like, wow, what is this? I never knew this. And then from there, I was still kind of a dummy in the sense of, I went to the military. When you go in the military, you still drink and you still act like an animal, because they kind of train you to be an animal. But I started going to church. I started, learning. I started serving. And then it got to the point when I got out of the military, I came back. I started a men's group through a church. I was actually on a pipeline through one of our churches to be a minister. So like, I was setting all this up, and that's kind of crazy because when I decided not to do that, like I had an extreme calling and I decided not to do that. And that's when everything started like going downhill too, which is weird. You know what I mean?
Did you feel inauthentic? Like you were called to be in this leadership position, but you didn't feel like you were qualified?
So I did feel that. And at the time I
felt that too. That sucks. It's not a good feeling.
Yeah, no. And I was living with, she wasn't my wife now, Sadie. I was living with her, but we weren't sleeping in the same bed. And I could give you every excuse under the sun, but she moved into an area in my town that was really rough. And I was like, there's no way you're staying there by yourself. So I moved in with her, and the church that I was going through this pipeline with was like, you have to move out right away. That's the first thing they said. And I was like, you know what? I respect that. I'll move out. And then really from there, it was just like, I let my insecurities kind of just creep in and pull me away, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. That living together before you're married is a tough one because it's so practical, and it just makes, and because Taylor and I waited until we were married to move in together, and everybody was telling it was just like starting the carnivore diet. Like, why would you do that to yourself? That doesn't make any sense. And we were just like, this is just what we believe is right. I mean, you don't have to do it, but this is just, that's between you and God. This is between us and God, and this is just what we feel like is right in the direction that we need to go.
I love that. There's so many things, and I mean, yeah, obviously you're tempted. Things happen when you live under the same roof, and then when you know it's wrong and you commit the act, you now associate something that God has given us to be so just fruitful and beautiful. Now it's like, this is wrong. So it's hard to kind of get away from that when you've been doing something, you know what I mean? Like,
you know, you're perverting something that should be holy and that was intended to be holy.
Yeah.
Purposes.
So it got to that point. And even when we got married, it was like, is this still wrong? Like, it was weird. So yeah, learn life the hard way when God's given you literally a how-to to do life, or it's crazy.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go into graphic detail, but I can definitely relate to that because Taylor and I weren't perfect by any means going into our marriage. And I'm going to try to just keep it rated PG and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
But you do kind of carry some of that baggage in to your marriage, and it's for us, it required some prayer to kind of get past that. But yeah, I think the biggest struggle that I had going into my marriage was pornography. That was a tough one to get off of, and no pun intended there either. But yeah, about 5 years into our marriage, she caught it. She figured it out, and that was probably when I hit rock bottom in my entire life, more than I ever had before. And so had a lot of help from my pastor, read countless books on how to get past it. And it actually wasn't until my first bodybuilding show I did everything wrong because I didn't have a coach, and so my testosterone levels got so low that like I was not really, just I guess not seeking out that sin as much as I was before, because the biological urge just wasn't there like it was before. Yeah. And it's funny how even though my first competition was a total train wreck and turned into and made my eating disorder even worse, got that sin out of the way at least. And since then been 100% clean. And so that was like amazing. 5 years ago. Thanks.
That's amazing.
And then decided to hire a coach and start doing bodybuilding right.
Good. So a good turning point for many things.
Yeah. You know, it never happens the way that you want it to. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, God's plan was 10 times better all along. And I should have just surrendered to him in the first place. And this all would have been a lot easier.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. And most of the time we ask for what happens, it's just, we don't think about the journey.
Yeah. Or you're asking because have you ever prayed asking for prosperity and success, like in your business and stuff, and for blessings upon you? Yeah, you know, of course you do, because that's kind of the goal, right? Yeah. But sometimes I know it's a cliche quote, but it's a popular one, and I feel like it's really applicable. God doesn't always give you what you want, but he always gives you what you need. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I've asked for something really, really big, usually something really hard happens right after it. Like when we decided to get baptized, Taylor and I started arguing with each other, and we both just like felt off, and we're feeling anxious, and we're like, oh, I think the enemy's got us. I think now we're on his radar, and he's like, oh hell no, we're gonna put an end to this. And then you got to get closer to your faith, and it's God's way of toughening you, making sure that you got all those aspects of that spiritual armor sharp. The sword of the spirit, the belt of truth or righteousness or whatever it is. Ephesians chapter 6. That's where it's at.
Yeah. Dude, have you ever, and it just reminded me, have you ever read C.S. Lewis' Screw Tape Letters?
No, I'm not a big Christian book reader, unless it's real deep theology or the Bible itself. But no, unfortunately, I just haven't gotten around to reading a whole lot of C.S. Lewis. But sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's just a cool book because when you talk about sin, he writes the book from a perspective of a demon trying to win people over to his side, and he calls like God the enemy. So it's how, like, where his mind went for this book is extremely it's just kind of cool to see. However, like, the small things that we battle with daily is what he presents in the book. So it'd be like,
what's the name of it again? Sorry, I'm gonna write it down.
Screw Tape Letters.
What tape letters?
Screw Tape
Letters.
Yeah.
By C.S. Lewis.
Yep. And so for instance, it would be the equivalent of like you just got into bed, and your wife just say she just got into bed and she's like, oh babe, can you get this for me? And inherently, we're selfish. Our sin nature is like, oh, I just got into bed, I'm comfy, I don't want to do that.
I'm like, hell no. She won't even ask because I got my headphones on, I'm already listening to music and I can't hear a damn thing anyway at that time.
But his perspective in the book would be like a demon trying to win this person over by saying like, oh no, she can go like get it herself. You need to focus on you. You got a big day planned tomorrow. You need your 8 hours. So it's like, it's cool in that sense because it's like, oh man, like how many times do I do that a day where I choose maybe me over something I shouldn't, or I'm choosing sin, even in the slightest, and then I'm allowing that to build. So it's kind of a cool perspective.
100%. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Something that I've got kind of goofy and nerdy with lately over the last year actually has been before and after my shows, I've been pretty low on, I require more sleep. And so it makes it hard to justify the amount of time studying the Bible that I normally would like to, because I have so many business obligations. And touching back to what you said about not being as active in the church. That was my biggest failure this year personally. I spent too much time away from the church, and now going back to being there every Sunday and being back into life group every Tuesday night and back into our prophecy studies every Wednesday night. It's I'm really realizing how much I missed out on and how much I did sacrifice. And so and you know what, my best physique was 3 weeks after that last show too, after I'd started going back to church and everything. So it was almost God's way of saying, you didn't need all those supplements that you were taking. You didn't need the, it's good that you're laying off of the creatine, that you're laying off of the protein powder and all the stuff that you were taking up and through your last show. And you really don't need as much as you think you do to have a good physique. You listen to Mind Pump, right? Or you
occasionally.
Yeah, me too. They had an episode not too long ago about how relationships have more to do with your physical health and how you look, and even your aesthetic health than nutrition and training combined. So
wow, that was. I mean, I could see that, man.
Those relationships are powerful, really, really powerful.
I could see that.
Yep. Crap, and see here again, I was going somewhere with that right before. But so something that Taylor and I have been doing, and that we've been doing a lot with the clients that we do have that happen to share our faith. If not, then I'm not gonna, like, obviously we'll figure out like a better motivational exercise, but or a more adequate for what they prefer. But for those of us that do share the same faith, we've been counting reps per scripture. So today for me was I will meditate on your precepts, and I'm on recording now, so of course I'm going to forget it, but I have it written down. I will meditate on your precepts and fix my eyes on your ways. That's Psalm 119 verse 13. And that's 13 words if it's the English Standard Translation. So My whole workout today was basically 13 reps, which is a good shoulder range for me. It's like a little bit above the hypertrophy range, but a little bit extra to get some more blood flow. And then I'm not using too heavy weights because I got a bad shoulder. So dislocated playing hockey.
Oh man.
Yeah. So I just know that if I say that verse, it's 13 reps. And if I fall a couple words shy, then I know that it was probably like 10 or 11. So then by the end of my workout, I'm very, like I've got it memorized. I probably prayed a little bit in between sets and meditated on it. And it's like, anybody can count to 13. Why would you do that? It's boring. Like, we've been at this a while, you bodybuild long enough and you get to a point to where you get burnt out. And so it's been a way to internalize the scripture and just think about some of these in a deeper, more powerful way. And if I would have still been doing that, if I hadn't missed my inductive, like, nightly deep dive Bible study every night, then I don't think I would have ever had the opportunity to learn and live out those verses in quite that way. So it's amazing how when you come to your point, how you have your own plans. And what does Psalm 2 say? That God laughs at our plans anyway, because he knows exactly what his plans are, and they're always 10 times better. He's just waiting for you to figure out and go, yep, called it. Okay. Yep.
Thanks, God. Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. I actually really enjoy that you do that. I've never heard anyone doing that. And I think
start with this one. If you want to try it, start with a 10 rep range, and start with Philippians 4:13, because it's super easy and motivational, and everybody takes it out of context, but it's just like read the whole book and then you get the context figured out, right? But I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Don't say through Christ who gives me strength, because that's like 11 or 12 reps. So then you screw up your whole workout. But translation, it's exactly 10. It's exactly 10. So like you can use, so that's a good rep range for basically every body part, right?
So what's funny that you bring that up is, oh man, so our gym logo actually has Roman numerals 4:13 on it, and it's specifically for that verse.
Mm-hmm. No way.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
kind of our way to sneak in some Jesus loving stuff if people don't even know it. But when they ask, then we can tell them.
Right. And it's not our place to force it on anybody either. So that's do you know who Todd Durkin is?
I'm not sure.
Okay, he's a motivational speaker, author. He started Fitness Quest 10. That was his company in California, I think. I'm reading his autobiography right now and basically listening to his motivational stuff every day. And he doesn't really cite scripture a whole lot, but everything that he says is it's almost word for word to the point to where you can hear it. And so if you're a believer, you can identify it and you can really connect with him and relate to it. But he's also preaching a message that's very loving and very understanding of the fact that a lot of his audience does not share his same faith. And so he'll say things like faith, hope, love, let's go. And I'm like, yeah, that's in Corinthians somewhere, 1st, 2nd Corinthians. I'm like, great, yeah, I can get behind this. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I love that. Yeah.
Is it okay if we switch gears towards? I want to be super respectful of your time, because I know you're as busy, if not busier, than I am. And so, anyway, I did want to ask you what your greatest athletic achievement was, just like overall. I'm talking bodybuilding, strength, everything that you've done. What's kind of the one thing to where you're like, yeah, we really mastered it this time?
Oh man. So I would think, like, athletically where you are on a carnivore diet is pretty impressive, for the fact that when I was bodybuilding and such, I worked out and did cardio all the time. And now I'm able to maintain a really relatively lean physique. I'm like the strongest I've been at the lightest weight. And I only work out like 30 minutes a day or every other day. So it's like, I don't have to do that much to be like where I would consider like my top tier, but as far as like athletic achievement, it would probably be just back in the military, because dude, you're a savage then. Your body, like what it can endure and just what you can do. You can go on a 15-mile run and do anything else. It's crazy. and you're not even eating that well. That's the crazy thing, is like you're able to push your body to limits that you think are just not possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm super glad that you talked about that first subject, about how you're able to maintain your leanness year round. Because this is more of a lifestyle for you, which is what I love about this. And that's what I think the carnivore diet and bodybuilding together. When I say bodybuilding, I'm not talking about necessarily being judged in a banana hammock in front of a panel of judges. I'm talking about body recomposition, right? Bodybuilding by definition is trying to have as much muscle as you can and as little fat as you can, right? So let's just not take it to a super extreme, but take it as far as we can until our body starts to fight back, and then maintain that year round. Because yeah, I mean, I like being lean. Okay. My neighbor likes motorcycles, and like, does that really serve him any like practical purpose? No. Does me being super lean really serve any practical purpose? I mean, not really, other than it's what I do for a living, is help other people kind of do the same thing, right? But
you're a walking billboard though, too.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal, right? And so I know that's what people want, what people like, and so I'm like, you know what? That's what I want. That's what I like. I mean, I like having muscles. I do. I don't like having body fat, so I try to keep that to a minimum and try to keep muscle to the maximum. And carnivore diet's just the most practical, easiest way to do it.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you.
Cool. What are your do you track your macros?
So sometimes, and the whole idea behind that is sometimes I like to see where I'm at, but I also want to push out, because I'll show pictures or I'll show videos, I'll show lifts. So like people will see, my muscle composition, and then I'll throw out that, I just had 300, 400 grams of fat or something like crazy ridiculous. And that's how I look. You know what I mean? Because I want people to question the narrative. I want people to question wait a minute, I'm eating all these vegetables, this healthy diet, and I look like this, but he's crushing, all these burgers and steaks and bacon, and he looks like that. So that's kind of my way of like just challenging people's beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really why I track right now. Now, if I ever were to do a show or a photo shoot or something like that, I would tie it back in. I would start tracking. Yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing this for so long that I kind of go crazy if I don't track anything. So I, personally definitely track every day, but I love what you said about that too. Like how you can't, if you're 30 or 40 pounds over your stage weight, how in the hell do you know what food is working for you and what's not? It's like, does this vegetable work for me? I'm a carnivore. I want to eat a vegetable. It's okay if carnivores eat vegetables too, by the way, because dogs eat vegetables too, and dogs are definitely carnivores. So therefore we should be able to eat vegetables here and there. But if you're like, okay, onions, do onions really agree with my body or not? Okay, let's go more towards macros. That's where it's more applicable in like sodium and potassium. So okay, I'm going to double my sodium. What happens if you're 10 pounds above stage weight? Great. Like you can see those changes, and it doesn't even have to be that. But if you're a guy, 10-12% body fat, and if you're a lady, 15 to 20% body fat, like that's kind of a good area to where you can see changes like that. And you can see what happens when you go, okay, what happens if I eat nothing but steak for an entire day? What happens if I get most of my calories from fat? What happens if I get most of my calories from protein? And then you can see those kind of changes. So I like where you're going with that too. It sounds like you and I kind of live this way around, and we're our own lab rats.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. And I would never tell someone to do something that I haven't. So that's what I'm really big on. Like whether it be if someone's coming to me for like a similar autoimmune type condition, I would never be like, hey, get on this supplement and they ask, oh, does it work? Well, I don't know. I just read about it. So I'm not that guy. Yeah.
Cool. There's another question that I was going to ask, piggybacking off of that. Let's see. Yeah, well, I guess coaching. Where can people go to inquire and to find more about the services that you offer? I mean, obviously, you're specialized more in like every day in functional training and in a lot of areas that I'm not. And so anybody listening, check this guy out. All right. Follow Trevor Griffith. Trevor Griffith. He's not that hard to find. He's got like 15,000 followers on Instagram. So definitely go check him out. Check out all of his content. He posts all of his food. He posts all of how he works out. If you like my Instagram profile, you're definitely gonna like his, because it's the same but with a completely different angle, and he specializes in a lot of things that I'm just not as experienced in. So I'm super glad that we're connected. But yeah, where's the best place that people can go to find more about you, sir?
So yeah, I do most of my stuff off of Instagram, and that's just Trevor Lee 89, my middle name and when I was born. And really, that's where I talk to people, and we go from there. And I try to help in any way. Whatever questions you have, just send them. And like I said, if I can help you or I can point you to somebody who can help, that's what I want to do. I want to be just a servant and be a light, right? Light and salt.
Absolutely. Light and salt. I love it. Absolutely love it. All right. Yeah. So, follow this gentleman. Hit him up in his DM box. He is you're a really authentic guy. I mean, you're someone that I just know that I can trust. I really, really do. So if you're listening to this, and you just need to, you should get connected with them. All right, get connected with the community. That's the cool thing about the carnivore community, is that I've noticed that it doesn't really matter if it's another coach. It doesn't matter who it is. It's like, this is a rising tide that raises all ships. And so I think we have a powerful message, and I think that there's a lot of science that's new, that's emerging, that's showing how going back to your blood work levels, that's showing that it's not going to give you a heart attack if you consume lots of dietary fat within the context of a low carbohydrate diet. And yes, please make sure that you check with your doctor before everything I just said, because I'm a complete idiot. You should not listen to anything that I say. But anyway, yeah, just wanted to say thanks again. We should definitely do a round two. At least I hope so.
Yeah, whenever.
Great.
Whenever.
Okay, cool. Well, heck yeah. Let's definitely schedule another one in a couple months and do a follow-up, and sure that we're going to have lots of questions coming out of this one. And I feel like we just scratched the surface. I feel like there's there's stuff that I have written down that I wanted to ask, but I'm like, you got to get in with your day. And so do I, obviously. So you got people to train. I got people to train. Let's go do it. Let's keep crushing it. And let's keep talking, man. I'm really, really glad that we're connected. And I think that we're going to do something really cool together. I don't know what it is, but I got that feeling deep down in my heart.
Good. I'm down, brother. I appreciate your time, and this was fun. Yeah. Hopefully we have helped somebody from this podcast. So
I hope so too. And if not, and if nobody listened to it, just worst case scenario, obviously it doesn't happen. But you know what? It was just a good talk for me and a good talk for you too. And I agree a lot. Yeah. Yeah. So thanks, bro. And we'll talk again real soon.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
Hey, meat eaters, Jesus lovers, whatever category you happen to fall in, and you made it through this entire episode. I know we covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of different topics, and just thanks for listening to this episode. It really, really means a lot. So please share it with a friend. That's how we grow this channel organically. This is not a money maker for us. And so this is helping us get our brand out, helping us get a positive message across that we really just hope is helping people. Okay. So if you could do that, that would really, really mean the world. Gonna end things off right now with a quick little testimonial from someone named Mimi. She lives in New Jersey, and she's just become a really, really good friend. She's new on our carnivore diet meal plan. So this is just kind of what she has to say about it. Hope that you're blessed by her words as well. I'm going to turn things over to Mimi right now.
Hey guys, I want to thank you because this meal plan has really helped me stay on track. It's been a very stressful week, especially being an accountant. During this time, it's stressful, it's frustrating, it's being pulled from so many different angles. Lack of sleep, not being able to really do anything with the family, being long, crazy hours. But this meal plan really kept me on track. It was giving me that structure that I needed. It helped me stay focused, and it helped me it was like those times that I was eating, I was focused on myself. It allowed me to focus on me. And I had my meals planned. There was no thinking, there was no guessing. Didn't have to put in an app. Everything was already set, good to go, microwaved. Could eat. That's it. If it was old me, I probably would have not eaten. Probably would have just snacked on anything, or probably just would have binged later at dinner. But thank you. I really appreciate that, because that really means a lot to me, because I'm like, oh wow, I'm taking care of myself, and I also appreciate the constant check-ins that meant the world. So thank you. And I'm just excited to see results. I felt it already, and I think this time around was more like an emotional that needing that support during, a crazy time, saying like, you could do it, you're still doing, you're eating, you keep it on track. So that was really important to me. So stay strong, fam.
Hey, Mimi, thanks so much for that. You're super sweet. Appreciate it a lot. So everybody else that's listening, I just want to end off on one more note. I couldn't remember, imagine that, me forgetting something. I couldn't remember Ephesians chapter 6 when we were talking about it earlier, so I felt kind of stupid when we were talking about it. But Ephesians chapter 6 verses 10 through 18, that's the spiritual armor that Trevor and I were talking about. And I just want to read it and make sure that everybody understands what it was that we were talking about. And I just wanted to cite it formally. Okay, and this would be a great way to end everything off. So this is Paul talking to the church at Ephesus. By extension, it applies to anybody that identifies as a Christ follower today. So finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Stand therefore, having fastened on the belt of truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and as shoes for your feet, having put on the readiness given by the gospel of peace. In all circumstances, take up the shield of faith, with which you can extinguish all the flaming darts of the evil one, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God, praying at all times in the Spirit with prayer and supplication. Supplication is basically just another fancy word for prayer. I think it means that you're asking for something. So it's a more specific type of prayer. It means that you're asking for something. But yeah, that's the spiritual armor. Awesome book. Check it out. Ephesians chapter 6. Okay. Love you guys so much. God bless. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye-bye.